Då går vi vidare i programmet och då kommer vi in på Saniona, ett bolag som många av er känner till och har följt och som ni har visat intresse för. Och på väg upp på scenen är Jörgen Dreyer, och jag vet också att Thomas Fälthus kommer att komma upp och kunna svara på de eventuella frågor ni har och också ge en del av presentationen. Varsågod Jörgen.
Ja, du får holde den. Ja, mange tak Peter, og tak fordi der er så mange, der kommer og hører på vores historie. Mit navn er jo Jørgen Dreyer, og jeg er dansk, som I kan høre. Jeg vil lave præsentationen på engelsk, fordi det fungerer normalt bedst. So, we have been actually around during the last few months quite a bit, speaking both here in Lund and many other places. So the presentation today will actually not be so much about the programs and the technologies behind it. I think we'll try to use the day today to talk more about one specific program, Tesofensine. We actually also presented at the Sedermera-dagen in Stockholm a few months ago, and there we had just acquired that compound just a few days before that meeting. So it was very early days, and we now want to give you an impression of where we are today with that compound. But with respect to other information about the company, background information, we actually made a small movie during the offering that we have just completed, and that movie you can see at the Aktietorget Saniona page and on our homepage. And also you are welcome to look into a recent presentation to get more information on the other programs. But as I said, we did complete an offering recently, and that was very successful, a førtrædesemission. So we are now ready to take the next steps in our company's development. I'll have a few slides on why we are different. We are not a typical small biotech companies. And then we'll talk about the Tesofensine. I'll do some of the scientific background, and then Thomas will talk more about the commercial opportunities of that compound, and also complete with some financials. We showed this slide during the roadshow, and I'll promise I'll not show it any more than today, about how the biotech industry is positioned in relation to risk and also upside potential. So it is very unusual business, this pharma biotech business, with a lot of challenges, but also huge upside potentials if you actually get the horse to the goal. It's an industry where it's extremely capital intensive, and it takes a very long time to develop a new product, 15 years or more. That is quite demanding. Also, there is a need for a very broad competence to do it all the way to the market, and that needs also a big infrastructure. That's also challenging. And then on top of that, you have a relatively high failure rate in this industry. How can we cope with that as a small company? We think we have the solution now of how it can be done, and at least this is what we do. We are focusing very much on partnership, have already established several partnerships, and that will really take down the capital need, because we are not only not paying ourselves, we're actually getting payments from the partners to do the first studies on the programs. And on top of that, we, of course, will, on top of the low burn, we will also have the possibility of going broader. With respect to the competences, that is there we also get help in our partnerships. They will have all the competences in the specific clinical disciplines, so we can focus on where we are very best in our ion channel field. So that will add critical mass and competences to have these partnerships. And then I think with respect to high failure rate, the only way to cope with that is to have a broad pipeline. So you will lose some of the horses, but we will have several horses running in the race. Today we have 5. We expect to have 6 programs running very soon. And that really means that it's quite likely that at least one of these will make it all the way, hopefully more of them. And if more of them, the upside is, of course, higher. So all this business about is to get billion-dollar drugs, and that's what the farmers buy in. So we just need to make it happen once. And an illustration of that we also showed at the roadshow is this acquisition of the company Convergence by the company Biogen just a few months ago. A very nice sales price here, around 675 million. Thomas will perhaps get back to that later. So there is really a very, very high upside in getting a compound, it's a phase 2 compound that has efficacy, and this is exactly in the field that we are also active with our first development compound. To understand our business, I think you should look at it as a core business where we are excellent team of ion channel scientists and technologists, and this is a team that has worked with more than 20 pharma companies in pharma collaborations, and it's more than 2 billion Swedish kronor that has been invested into this core business. And it's a number of programs, patents and so on, that we want to get running one after the other. And as I said, so far we have 5 of these running. One is in partnerships with the world's biggest company, Pfizer. One is with Biogen. I just mentioned Biogen before. And also co-financed by Atlas. So this is clearly how we want to position also other programs here in lying on the shelf here. But we have also initiated some internal programs. We have these 3 programs, and I'll talk a little bit more about this pain program later, which we are taking into clinical phase 1 later this year. But the next focus is now on tesofensine, which is a compound that is further in clinical development. It has shown very nice effect in phase 2 studies on weight gain, and we are now positioning this towards diabetes type 2. Thomas and I will talk a little bit more about that later. So if you look at what we have accomplished over the past year, I think I'll go here to actually look at it. It has been a quite hectic year with the Biogen, the Pfizer agreement early last year, Biogen investment into the other program in just a month later. We raised 17 million at our IPO at Aktietorget, and also we have selected the first development candidate now going into the clinic later this year. We had some milestones in some of the partnerships, and we acquired this phase 2 compound, tesofensine. And later in the year, we actually received milestones in our partnerships, also having a monetary impact. And as I said, just recently, we also completed a new offering. A couple of words about the partnerships. These are all in our core research area in ion channels, and it's for CNS diseases, it's neurology diseases. It's a system where the partners pay all our costs, and we then get milestones and royalties if we are successful getting compounds further along the development and finally on the market. So the milestones here are up to $52 million in the Pfizer deal. The Ataxian deal is actually made a little different way because it was made actually as a spin-out. Still, we get payments of our cost and we get royalties on what comes out of it. But here, our other upside is on the ownership in the company, where we have 14% ownership when the compound is brought all the way to where Biogen is supposed to acquire it. So we don't need to put more money in it. It has already been put forward, these $17 million for the financing of the program, and then we're just waiting and looking for our potential upside. If we look at it in a pipeline format, you can see that these 5 programs are the active programs, the partner programs, the 3 internal programs, and then all the research programs lying behind where we have academic collaborations and other activities. Behind this line, we have some other clinical assets that we are not moving ourselves right now and that we are positioned for partnerships or for spin-outs. So there is a certain upside potential in this. And as I said, one of these we would like to discuss further, the bringing tesofensine from this box up to an active box. And we've had a few months to talk with experts in the field and to both within the industry, within the academia, and we have a very much better picture today of what we need to do and when we need to do it. We have not taken a final decision to go for type 2 diabetes, but this is how it looks today. So what about milestones over the next few months or next year, expected news flow? Certainly we expect milestones, and the most important ones in these two programs, where we will take this into man, and this will present a plan later on. For these programs, at least one of them we expect to select for preclinical development. In the partner programs, we also expect research milestones. And further, in the internal programs, we expect to select one of these to be in the active box. We would not exclude that also in tesofensine, in the obesity field, there might be some news, but this is not our primary focus, that is, as I said, type 2 diabetes. And also the two other programs here that I'll not talk more about, we see opportunities for partnership spin-outs. Now, I'll just talk about one slide on this pain program, which is where we have spent most money and where we'll spend the money we just raised, where we have a preclinical development candidate which is for pain in general, but in particular for that disease which we call neuropathic pain. It's a first-in-class program. Nobody else has really tried this, and it should restore the pain control system in the spinal cord by a specific system. And there is really very, very poor treatment options today in neuropathic pain. Very big market, and also the Biogen deal that I talked about before was within exactly the same pharmaceutical therapeutic field. So we think there is really a confirmation of the high medical need. The plans are now to get into man later this year, so we will do these phase 1 studies, and we'll complete the studies with additional efficacy readouts on the CNS side for looking for side effects, and also in the pain area. Now to tesofensine. So if you look at the homepage and look up diabetes, you will have a picture like this. We just one of the first pictures came up. There's always a relation between diabetes and overweight. And this is one of the reasons why we are seriously considering to go into diabetes with our tesofensine compound. Now, what is diabetes type 2? That is a situation where you have an elevated glucose in the blood, and that is due to that these muscles and other cells do not respond sufficiently to insulin. Then the beta cells will produce more insulin to try to cope with that, and that will finally stress the beta cells and lead to a reduction in production of the insulin. And finally, the cells might die. So this leads to several complications, and one of the complications is actually nerve damage in the sensory neurons, which is neuropathic pain. One of the biggest part of the neuropathic pain market is diabetes. So the risk factors are, of course, family, ethnic and age, but it's also body mass index. And this, you cannot do something about this, you cannot actually. And the treatment is, when you come to the doctor with type 2 diabetes, first to try to lose weight by diet, exercise. For most patients this does not work, but then they will need to go into medication. At the last Sedermera Day, I showed you this slide about how the epidemic of obesity has evolved over the US over the last few years. That is dramatic, and it's in itself a very serious thing. And it's also happening many other places in the Western world, and now also in China. But what is more problematic is that the diabetes epidemic has been running almost as fast and just behind the obesity epidemics. And that is simply because there is this correlation between, if you get fat in your liver, you will have a very high likelihood of getting type 2 diabetes. So this, I think, is now very well established, that you will have a likelihood of getting type 2 diabetes by gaining weight. But what about the other way around? If you take off fat and weight, actually there's very good indications that you will have a normalization, at least in the early stages of type 2 diabetes in many patients. You can see that if you do a surgery, bariatric surgery that is done to many obese patients. It's a terrible thing to do, I think, but it actually happens within few days that you'll have the blood sugar going down. And it also happens if you lose weight by exercise and so on. You'll simply lose the diabetes symptoms. And you can also do that by drugs. So tesofensine is a unique weight loss drug. Here's compared to the drugs that are on the market that has been used for 1 year. Tesofensine study was just half a year, but it was that was then run for additional 6 months in an open label study, and you got up to this range of about 14-15% of weight loss. Really dramatic, and it's as much as you get almost when you have the operation of your gut. Which means that it is a potential prevention and treatment of type 2 diabetes. So I think I'll leave it here and let Thomas explain how we can use that in a commercial setting.
Thank you. So we're trying to switch another page in Saniona today, as you can see, and talking exclusively about tesofensine and how we see it develop within diabetes. And I will just give you a few slides about the market and then discuss why we think it is interesting and how we could see the product will be positioned before I will move on to the financials. So the type 2 diabetes market is huge and it's very dynamic. There is about 200 million patients worldwide, and of those, 52 million is found, or 53 million is found in the 7 major markets. Data Monitor estimates that the total value of the type 2 diabetes market may increase in just the 7 major markets to $42 billion in 2023, up from about $23 billion today. So it's significant. But what you also can see from this slide is that US account for the major share. So this is the key to this market. Interesting for tesofensine is that 16% of the patients are not put on medical treatments. They are giving exclusively diet and exercise, where tesofensine could kick in as an interesting option. Also, it's a very dynamic market and also competitive. Patients are switched between therapies every second year or so. And there's a lot of different products and combinations. So you're not going to get a significant share of all of it unless you're is part of a combination. But little will also be sufficient in such a big market, of course. This slide, although competitive, I would say that the existing market is dominated by a few drug classes, of which some have been around for many years, such as metformin, which was introduced or invented more than 100 years ago and introduced in diabetes in the 60s. This slide shows the major groups used in type 2 diabetes, apart from insulin, of course. So these are all drugs apart from GLP-1, which is used for injection. I'm not going through this slide, I'll just make a few notes here. The first one is that it seems that there is a direct correlation between weight loss and the efficacy of existing drugs when it comes to glucose control. So the more weight loss, the better control. Therefore, it is temptation to postulate that a product with a significant weight loss will also provide glucose control in these patients. And actually, the mechanism of action of DP4 inhibitors and the GLP-1 agonist support such a claim, because they have a similar mechanism of action in the pancreas, where they stimulate the production of insulin and suppress the production of glucagon. So through the classical, you could say, diabetes treatments, they are similar and they are stimulating through the GLP-1 pathway. But GLP-1 is much more effective. And the reason is that GLP-1 is also delaying the gastric emptying and regulate appetite in the patients. So the difference between these drugs and these drugs is primarily due to the weight loss properties of GLP-1. And this has also led Novo Nordisk to introduce their product in the obesity market recently, because it's significant, as you can see. Another interesting point is that there has now been introduced a new drug class called glucose transporters, which are not working through the classical insulin diabetes mechanism of actions. This one is controlling glucose level through excretion of sugar in the urine, and not through metabolism of glucagon, blood sugar. So that's interesting, and of course that also leads to a weight loss. So we see diabetes and obesity, type 2 diabetes and obesity as one of the same thing. And others are doing this, and this word has not been coined by us, diabetes. Yet there's a significant difference between these two markets. Diabetes, as you've just seen, is well established and huge. This you cannot say about obesity. Here you have to develop it from scratch. Also, the regulatory environment is more interesting, or more favorable perhaps, in diabetes, because it is recognized as a severe disease, whereas it is not the case for obesity, which just has been recognized as a disease. But we should not overstate that argument, of course. And then finally, you can say that when you have the product approved, you need also someone to pay for it. And in diabetes, there's a well-reserved reimbursement of these types of products. This is not the case with obesity today. Of course, Novo Nordisk will now develop this market, but they also know it takes time. Diabetes is, of course, also more competitive, but you only need a small market share in order to make a blockbuster product in this market. There is some clinical evidence of use of tesofensine in diabetes. And obviously, we still think it makes a lot of sense to develop tesofensine in obesity to prevent diabetes. But we also see possibilities in diabetes itself. And the first one will be to reverse type 2 diabetes patients, early stage type 2 diabetes patients. And it has already been shown by others that it is possible to do that through introduction of significant dietary through, for instance, surgery. It is also generally accepted in the industry that it is possible to slow the progression of disease through diet and exercise. And doctors are actually prescribing this only to what we call pre-diabetic patients in order to progress, slow down the progression of the disease. So you can see the principle is already there. And tesofensine could be very well go well into this market because it is tough, as you know, to lose weight. It's a more issue of compliance. Then we also see tesofensine to be used in first, second, and third line therapies or in combination with existing drugs. It is possible to normalize the blood glucose levels through diet. This has been shown by scientists in 2013, for instance. The clinical endpoint in type 2 diabetes is just that. This is the primary endpoint, where weight loss is seen more as a benefit. But tesofensine will provide both. You also think, as mentioned, that the existing therapies support this. So there is a correlation between weight loss and blood sugar control. The mechanism of action of DPP-4 and GLP-1 supports it. And we have seen an introduction of new types of drugs which are actually not addressing directly the diabetes classical pathways. But why eat sugar if you can avoid it? And excrete it in the urine if you can avoid it. You can do that with tesofensine. This does not target the insulin secretion or sensitivity, and it does not interfere the metabolic pathway of blood sugar. But we are, as mentioned, not the first one which will introduce such a product. And you could say also regulators had some concern about this in the beginning, or medical people. But nowadays, it's actually seen as a strength because it makes it easy to combine it with other types of diabetes products. And we will enjoy that strength. In addition to that, we will also address the real cause of diabetes in many patients through the diabetes effectively. So we see some interesting options in this field. Then financials. I will skip this and just go to our share price or performance. So we introduced the company in 2014 at 5 crowns per share. We have just in January, as mentioned, closed around at 7 crowns per share, or we raised 24 million crowns. And the current share price is about 18 yesterday, which gives a market cap of a little more than 300 million crowns. We are followed by analysts such as Redeye and Neurostock. And Neurostock has made a big job in explaining the value of the different programs recently and come up with a suggestion about a market cap of 80 crowns per share. So there's some room. There are different ways to value companies like ours. Net present value analysis. There are, you can say, benchmark competition, and you can compare your company with other types of companies, similar companies in the industry. And as an investor, you probably use a combination of both. Analysts like Redeye and Neurostock, they use net present value analysis. And I will just give you a few perspectives with the others. So this one was what Jørgen mentioned previously. Convergence is focused on ion channels as Saniona. Their lead program has just finished phase 2 program in neuropathic pain, just as our program in going into phase 1. And Biogen ID, this was the main asset in this company. And Biogen ID decided to buy this company for $675 million in January this year. 200 upfront and 475 in earnouts. So it's a significant value in such a program, and this is just one of our programs. And we could be there with our lead candidate 361 in 3 years from now, 2 to 3 years from now. This slide shows companies in the Swedish industry listed at OMX, Aktietorget, or First North. They are all focused on development of pharmaceuticals, so there is no medtech and no diagnostics. They do not have products on the market, so the key value in these companies are their pipeline and their partnerships. And for Saniona, I have listed made two columns. One which is showing our total pipeline, and then one is the active pipeline. And coming back to our analysts before, Redeye and Neurostock, I think that Neurostock probably looking more on this line, whereas Redeye is looking on this line, and therefore they're coming to quite different results, of course. There has been some, I showed this slide first time in Göteborg earlier this month, and there has been some movement, so I have updated the numbers a bit, and there has been some changes around in the list. Anyway, but basically I think that the conclusion is the same. And that is that if you compare Saniona with these companies, then the first thing which strikes you is that apart from the mature OMX companies, none of these companies have any partnerships today. And that Saniona is leading the pack together with Active Biotech. And partnerships are important because they validate the company. This is, you could say, the acid test. The other thing is that compared to Saniona, many of these companies seem to have a quite early and narrow pipeline of products. And of course, there could be difference in research and preclinical programs, particularly in the research, where you can be three years from candidate selection and 1 year. But that goes for all of them, I think. Of course, also there is difference between having a phase 3 program and a phase 1 program. And that's also why Active Biotech has a higher value in Saniona, of course. But still, I think when I look at this slide, I'm not really concerned about the current market value. I think we can create significant value for our shareholders in coming years. And this will come through development of our pipeline, it will come through partnerships, and it will come through a better communication to the market. I think maybe I should stop here.
I think
or just summing up.
You can do it in half a minute because I'm quite sure that we have lots of questions out here.
Okay, so summing up, we have a low burn rate and high ambitions. We have a low burn rate because a significant part of our operational cost is financed through our partnerships. We have high ambition. We trust we can significant value for you in the coming years. And we see Aktietorget as a step zone to take the product to OMX listing in Stockholm. We think we have the things in place for following this tour. We have 16 programs in the back and a world-class team within our field of research. We have shown that we can take these assets into commercial interesting deals, and we think there are more to come. We have, since listing, achieved a significant progress, particularly on an internal pipeline, where we are ahead of our timelines. We initiate phase 1 clinical trials on 363 in Q4 this year, and we are, as you've seen today, actually working on taking tesofensine into the clinics. So not only will we be a clinical company this year, we may also be a phase 2 company in not too long distance future. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Thomas. And Jörgen.
Thank you.
Vi har tid för några enstaka frågor. Varsågoda. Vem vill vara först ut? Ja. Är det en fråga där eller? Nej. Gerhard, har du någon fråga?
Can you mention why you're addressing the diabetes 2 instead of obesity, more in short words?
Why we are doing it? I think the major three reasons, as listed before, is that it is a much larger and well-established market today. 2, we think that there is a more favorable regulatory environment. And 3rd, there is a well-established, you could say, reimbursement in this market. That's why we find it interesting. And then we see a way to position the product in this market. And this is what we've been talking with the specialist about. And right now we are looking over to the clinical endpoints, how we can prove it.
Do you think it's easier to achieve a partnership?
If we can, we need probably to show something with the product. First of all, we will need to address, you could say, the increased heart rate. And 2, we will need to also, I think, to show that there is a reduction in blood glucose level.
Yeah, as Thomas said, the obesity market is an immature market today. Maybe the new Novo Nordisk drug will make that market, at least the analysts forecast that. But some of the other products have not really yet shown that the market is huge. So we need to get the reimbursement in place, and we need to get a new culture in the prescribing society. So that is why we are waiting a little on that opportunity. But the opportunity in diabetes is very obvious to us right now.
Okej. Ja, varsågod. Ett ögonblick, ska få en mikrofon.
Hi, can you say something about the patent situation around tesofensine, maybe in addition to going into new indications?
I can talk about that. We acquired tesofensine very cheaply because actually the composition of matter, the original patent, is running out, and we'll probably not get much use of that original patent. So what has happened on top of that is some additional patents on combination of drugs. It's is using it in specific indications. We actually have a patent application on using the drug in obesity or in type 2 diabetes. And we also have patents on formulation and other production patents. So it's a complicated picture of various patent positions that we have built up around tesofensine, and some of them very recent, just filed very recently.
Okej, thanks for that answer. Ni behöver inte ställa frågan på engelska om ni inte önskar, så blir inte blyga. Någon avslutande? Okej. Ja, okej. Just a second. The question is, how many employees are in the company as of today?
Yes, we are at 20 employees in the company, and these people are mainly in our very core area of ion channel drug discovery, and that is what is also paid for through our partnerships. So the rest of the organization is more or less a virtual organization. We do have one person taking care of the development, drug development activities, but otherwise it's contract research laboratories that do the work in the development programs.
I could perhaps just add that we're saying we are 20 people, but we are outsourcing, and we have actually, I think, another 20 people fixed addressed to the company in India, in a company called Syngene. So if you include that, then there's actually 40 people involved in the science.
Thank you, Thomas. Okay, before we finish, is there anything you would like to add, Jürgen or Thomas? Anything particular? No?
So we're fine, thanks.
Thank you. And these two gentlemen, they will still be here, so if you have any more questions in the break, please take the opportunity to discuss with them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Då ska vi gå vidare i programmet, men jag ska hålla mitt löfte. Och ni som går ut nu, vet ni varför ni lämnar? Nu ska vi ha utlottning utav en iPad, så jag skulle föreslå att ni stannar. Har 3, inte en fjärde. Nej, hur som helst, löften är till för att hållas. Och jag har en iPad här. Och vi har dragit en lycklig vinnare. Jag vet att personen är här. Sitter i lokalen. Men jag undrar om vinnaren ska få den nu eller vinnaren ska stanna kvar under hela dagen innan han eller hon får hämta ut den. Men vi har bestämt att den som vinner den får komma upp här och hämta den och behålla den. För det har den personen uppfyllt vårt önskemål att stanna, vara aktiv, ta del och njuta utav dagen här. Vinnare utav den första iPaden är Christer Arvidsson. Där ser ni att det lönar sig. Vi har fler saker som ska fördelas under dagen. Som jag sa inledningsvis, när, det vet jag inte, men det kommer att ske. Så stanna och ta del av resterande del. Vi